Let's welcome the CPAC Australia founder, Andrew Cooper, the CPAC US chairman, Matt Schlapp, and the chairman of the Japanese Conservative Union, Jcu. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the stage.
So the podium's left there. But for many people in this audience, they probably don't really know where CPAC came from, where it started. Could you fill us in?
I've always looked old, just so you know. The white hair didn't help. But the people will say to me all the time, oh, you're the guy who started CPAC. And I have to remind them that CPAC was established before I was born. I'm the first chairman of the CPAC to be born after its founding, and it's an interesting thing with this question of what, the back-to-back speeches you just had, which is the intellectuals in America, William F. Buckley being one of them, certainly wanted to make sure that people understood why limited government and constitutional principles, strong families, values, why that was important. We used to say 3 legs of the stool: cultural conservatism, strength in foreign policy, and smart economic policies. And what the academics realized over time, Andrew, is that they could write the greatest white papers in the world, the most beautiful articles, imbued with truth. And when you lost the election over and over and over again, or you put in these, what we say in America, rhino Republicans, these soft conservatives. Well, I don't know what your term is here for that.
Lino.
Lino, okay. We have rhinos, you have linos. That if you keep losing the elections, you'll never make any progress. So those intellectual leaders got together with the political leaders and said, let's create what was called the American Conservative Union, which we now just call CPAC. Why don't we create an organization that can do both educate people on the policies that matter and go out there and win in these elections?
Yeah, so you didn't answer the question. When did it start?
Oh.
And
sorry about that. So I'm sure you've heard of Barry Goldwater, conservative senator from Arizona who got the Republican nomination in 1964, once again before I was born. And that was the lightning bolt, the first time a conservative, in a long time anyway, in the modern context, was able to get the Republican nomination. Now, he went on to be destroyed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, but it was out of that loss that conservatives got smart and said, we can pick a conservative, but if they lose the general election, it does no good. Why don't we have a group that gets out there and figures out how to win a general election? And the personification of that was someone I call Saint Ronnie, but the great President Ronald Reagan.
The great President Ronald Reagan. And that was about 50 years ago, right?
Yeah, well, Reagan, it went from 64, the creation of ACU, to Ronald Reagan getting that nomination after 3 attempts and winning in 1980.
Yeah. So the first startup CPAC since then was, of course, CPAC in Japan. And perhaps, Jay, you can explain, your experience with, starting CPAC in Japan, what the conservative landscape looked like in Japan then, and what it looks like now, and has CPAC made a difference?
Okay. CPAC を日本で始める前の状況というのはちょうど多分50年代のアメリカに非常に似てたと思うんですね。それはもう保守がいろんな団体があって、でそれぞれがみんな自分たちがボスみたいな感じでバラバラ、それに対して左翼リベラリズムは非常に一致団結していて、もう本当に負けそうな感じになっていたと。これがまず CPAC ジャパン始める前の日本の状況でした。
Conservative Party being fractured and not united. Never seen that before.
それに対してやっぱり僕にとっては ACU のこのアメリカのやり方をモデルにしてCPAC を通じて政策の違いはいろいろあるけれども大きなアンブレラを作って、でその中でいろんな保守の勢力が団結してリベラリズムを打ち負かすと、この動きを日本で2017年から始めたんですね。ちょうどアメリカではトランプ政権が誕生してからです。
It's interesting because I wanted to start CPAC in Australia and I flew unannounced to the US in 2018 and met with Dan Schneider. You wouldn't see me, Matt. You know, you brushed me off.
I'm pretty important, Andrew. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't
right.
just do everything.
Yeah, and Dan Schneider, CEO of ACU, surprised me. Firstly, he let this strange Australian in that he'd never met before. Within an hour and a half meeting, we had hammered out a handshake agreement, which we both honoured. Both organisations have honoured, and but the other thing that surprised me, they go, "There's already a CPAC running in Japan." I go, "What? I thought we were going to be first." And,
Yeah.
So it was,
Can I say something there, Andrew? As we're all standing here, I noticed one thing, a commonality between us. Maybe, I served in a White House, so some of us have political experience, but by and large, I consider Chairman Aiba to be a very entrepreneurial person in politics. I know that's what your background is too. You come from the world of business, being creative in business. I've never run for office, and I consider myself somebody that loves politics, but also kind of hates it at the same time and wants to bring business principles. So so many of you have said to me, how can you make a difference in America, in Australia? I always say, pray for America. Some people like that answer. Some people, it's almost like not enough. They're like, well, that sounds trite. But what I really think we need to do, if conservatism, limited government, people who believe in human freedom, if we're to be successful, we have to take these lessons we learn in the private economy in our private lives, and we have to infuse them into the political class, which has almost a paint-by-numbers approach. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing well.
well, we have to do that. Could you imagine if we left the running of the global economy up to Washington and Canberra? Do you have a swamp, equivalent swamp in Japan?
もう日本もだから今政治家になってる人たちがですね、経済がわからない人たちがもう2世3世でなってる人がいっぱいいるので、増税すれば国はうまくいくというふうに誤解している人たちがいて、本当に国民は迷惑していると、こんな状況です。
That kind of sounds like Hunter Biden running your country. I don't know if I like that.
It also sounds very libertarian, there being a burden as well. So I must say, though, and I'm not sure whether you agree, Jay and Matt, but you said you would never be a politician. I certainly wouldn't be, and I don't think you've got any aspirations to be a politician. I think it's the most difficult job in the world, and I think you've met a lot of politicians here. I think we should probably show them a bit more respect, because that job is a hell of a job. That's a terrible job. The abuse they get, and I think if they're in the, you should give them a pat on the back.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one job that is harder than running for office, including in Australia. And I will agree with you. Like, I always leave a CPAC event in another country being so inspired by the political leaders that take all the heat. But can you imagine someone that had a tougher job? My wife was the communications director to Donald Trump. She had to read tweets. She had to go through all of these attacks. You would admit that was a pretty tough job.
Yeah, that's a tough job. What's the social media? What's the cultural attitude towards using social media to attack politicians? Does that happen in Japan, or is there a cultural difference there?
これもじゃあすごいデータがあるんですけど、ツイッターがね今 X に変わってイーロン・マスクになったからいろんなことを発表してくれるんだけど、去年1年間で世界の政府機関から検閲削除を依頼された国で一番表現を削除してくれと多かったのが日本だそうです。とんでもないでしょ。
Perhaps you could just explain to everyone, what we're doing with these international CPACs and what your aspiration is.
Yeah, so I just don't get worried. We're not globalists, okay? We're not trying to. I'm not here from America, and I'm not here to help you. That's not our goal. Our goal is almost a little bit out of desperation. We look at what's happening. We look at what's happening in America, and we're like, how come we're slipping so fast? And how come all the international connectivity that's going along around the globe is to destroy your children and your grandchildren, destroy your schools, make you reliant on the regime in Beijing, all the things we don't want, right? Empower the social media oligarchs and the rest. And so we started with Jay. It was Jay who started this, not me. Jay is the one who said, I'm going to start to do this in Japan. Jay had the vision to have a CPAC in Japan. And so what we're trying to do is collaborate with each other, not only put on a great conference and learn from each other, but also we have a lot of conversations, and the politicians we work with, about what's working in our country and what you should try. So as much as the World Economic Forum guys, the Davos guys, and everyone else, they're colluding to destroy everything that you hold dear. You ought to know that there's people on the other side, a little less funded, okay, fine, but we're a lot more handsome and smarter, and we're working on that on the other side. And what I would like to do is invite you on this voyage with us. If you want to come to America, I know it's a long flight. I know because I'm about ready to get on one of those long couple of flights, but please join us. And if you want to come with us, whether we're going to Brazil, which we're going to be going to, Mexico City, we're going to be going to Japan in December. I'll let you invite them. I'm not going to invite them to that. But whether we're going to Korea or we're talking about Italy, where Prime Minister Meloni has spoken at Cpac twice, and she's a fabulous star on the international stage. So if you want to travel with us, come with us and be on this voyage, because I'm not someone that is going to try to overly sell you, but I'm telling you there's a pushback coming from ordinary people all over the globe against these globalists. It looks like they're going to crush us, but I'm telling you, because of people like you, we're not going to let it happen.
Yeah. 今のマットの言葉であるように、本当にこれから世界中で CPAC が広がっていくことがすごく大事だと思っていて、僕らにとってコンサバティズムの敵は大きく2つあると思うんですよ。一つは昨日ゴードンちゃんも繰り返し指摘してきたように、もう本当に勢いのある敵として中国、これが一つですね。でもう一つの敵は、これは歴史的に根深い敵、もうマットも何回も言ってるけど、グローバリズム、その奥にいるディープステート、これが僕らコンサバティズムにとっての敵で、彼らは非常にやる気があって勢いがあってスピードも速い。だからこそコンサバティズムが連携しなければ、彼らに僕らの素晴らしい愛国心とか自由とか、これが破られてしまう。そのために国際CPACが広がる必要があるんじゃないかと私は思っています。